I came across another group of beings that was mentioned during practices with the Pleiadian. It was the White Brotherhood. In the book it was positioned in such a way that they have an interest in all of us developing. But then I came across this White Brotherhood from a completely different angle. The whole rainbow picture became quite dull. They take a person and dismember them.
Well, for the organs. They give organs, of course.
Your body is just a product that is traded. On one level of consciousness, you are also a resource. You are a highly sought after resource, not only among humans, but also among other forms of consciousness that disguise themselves as aliens and as the White Brotherhood.
These are the dead, actually, you say?
Among them are the dead. They take away the most valuable thing from you.
Consciousness.
Consciousness, yes, they will repair your body there.
And what do they do with this consciousness?
It is their vitality, it is their food. So technically they were fulfilling their tasks, but in fact I was still rolling back. The dependency becomes stronger and stronger.
You told me the other day that you had contacts with the Pleiadians, which was surprising to me because you seemed not to be involved in this whole story. Let's talk about that.
Well, yes, I am no longer part of this whole story, but when I was searching, when I was moving in search of the truth, when I wanted to find out what this world looks like and who I am in this world, it happened. The books of Amora and Guanyin, the Pleiadian legacy, fell into my hands. I began actively seeking context with these beings, context with these processes, and I found them, I used them. A part of my life was completely dedicated to this. To some extent, can it be? This can probably be called channeling, although it's not really channeling. It's more of an interaction, a joint practice, a collaborative work. There were different chambers of light, which had certain effects on my physical body, on my field, on my energy. I really liked this influence. Time after time, night after night, I turned to them, summoned them to me. There was a formula given on how to establish contact. And with my immature mind, I entered into relationships with them. Well, initially for my own benefit, and then, as it turned out, for their benefit as well. But this was not so obvious to me at the time, because I fully enjoyed the processes of everyone. I recommended it to everyone. Made these chambers for other people.
Kind of chamber?
Light chambers. That is when I turned to the Pleiadians and to other beings who wanted to participate in this procedure. You could send them a request there. So you first call them, call. At some point, they suddenly appear in your field. That is, it was perceived very clearly. And after they appear in the field, when you perceive them, you address them. Make me a light chamber. And there were names listed.
What is a chamber? Some kind of space or something?
So here's what happened. That is, every time they also had such a technique there. Cone of light and light chamber. Maybe something else, I just don't remember. And so I lie down, I make the request. And around my body, in my field, some structure begins to form, which actively starts to influence me. And I completely open myself to this influence because I ordered it for myself. So, and in addition, it was mandatory to install cone above the head. That is, it's also a kind of structure that created a sort of suction, like there was a feeling as if I was constantly under some kind of pump that was pulling something out of me. Well, that's it. It was cool because I would wake up in the morning and really notice changes in myself. That is, I had not the slightest doubt that this was imagination or illusion, even less. I had doubts when I started telling my acquaintances and friends, who were also interested in various processes. And they also absolutely clearly recognized both their presence and their impact on them. I could even ask to have these cameras installed on them through me. Did you see them? Or did you just perceive them? You know, I didn't have vision then, I felt it. I felt their presence. It's the same as closing your eyes now. I can feel the stone, feel the seat. Your friends didn't see them either? You know, they didn't at all. I wasn't at all interested in what they saw. I was more interested in, well, what changed, what happened. So I can't say for sure what they saw, but naturally they felt it. There was an impact too, and the results were similar. And I even, up to a certain point in time, basically agreed that yes, perhaps this is my path, and I seem to have found what I need.
Well, okay, look. As you often say, how were you sure that these were exactly the Pleiadians, and not entities from the Second Gates or some similar story, which is now full of all sorts of archangels, other various channelers, anyone? So how were you? Convinced that these were real Pleiadians?
I never really asked myself that question.
So maybe they were entities then?
I had a book. The book provided instructions. By following these instructions, I achieved the results described in these books on myself. What should have confused me? Why should I have doubted? No. I accepted it as a given and did not question it. Filter of perception. I was trusting in this process, although, well, I can't say that I'm a trusting person. But in this process, I was enticed by the fact that everything was done for me. My job was to shout out order and just lie back and enjoy. That was enticing. The fact that I didn't have to do anything.
Well, and now, how many years have passed? About 10 years or so?
No, much more.
More, right?
I was still a schoolboy back then.
Ah. And now, looking at it all through the prism of your experience, how do you see it? Were they really Pleiadians? Or maybe not?
They were definitely self-aware beings. It's hard for me to say now whether they really live in those Pleiades because it's only known to the inhabitants of Earth that the place in space above us is called the Pleiades. Those who live there, well, obviously they call these places differently. Therefore, naturally I can't claim that they are from there, but I continue, of course, to perceive them as self-aware beings with their own interests. At some point, I started to move on. At some point, I came across another group of beings that was mentioned. It was mentioned during the practices with the Pleiadians.
In this book, right?
Yes, it was the White Brotherhood. Again, I didn't filter. Well, I mean, if someone is doing something for me, that's great. In the book, it was positioned in such a way that they have an interest in us all developing. And they therefore...
Yes.
Exactly. But then I came across this White Brotherhood from a completely different angle in completely different contexts. I encountered it with a master, a person who understood and was knowledgeable in everything that was happening. And then I came across another person who also dealt with them in the White Brotherhood. And he had an even more interesting aspect. The game did not reveal itself to me, and then this whole colorful picture became quite dull. Because there were changes and impacts at the levels where I was aware. And to be fair, I can say that there were good ones. But the impact, an energy exchange at the level where I was not aware, I would not agree to that now. Not even close.
Let's explain in more down-to-earth words so that people understand what you're talking about.
We have a physical body, the body of first attention. We have a psyche, that is our personality, our self. Formed by neural connections in the head, it can delve into its self-perception for a long time. In this topic, we have the body of second attention. Energy is everything that we actively practice, extract from ourselves, develop such as super abilities, extrasensory perception. That is, it's something that initially seems not so accessible. But besides all this, we also have consciousness. That is the body, third attention, which is like a bottomless abyss. No matter how much you study it, the bottom is still not visible. And it is precisely the body of consciousness, this very consciousness, that turns out to be a highly sought after product. And here we can draw an analogy with our modern world, with transplantation, with stem cells, and where they come from. They are not generated out of thin air. That is, this is at the level of physics. How it happens. You are a resource. Yes, I'm over 40, so I have nothing to fear, but there are people, young people, who can easily be this resource.
Well, please explain. I asked for something.
They take a person and dismember them.
Ah, well, for organs.
Organs are taken. Of course. That is, they are unlikely to start taking anything from me. I've already lived my life. But there, where there is instability, where there are conflicts, where there is chaos, where there is disorder, that's where this is done without hesitation. There you are a resource, there you are not a person. There your body is just a product that is traded. We have this. It's at the level of physics, naturally. At the level of the psyche. You can also be a resource. Someone will parasitize on you, dump garbage into your head, and you will try to somehow live through it, and you won't have time for anything else. And with the strength you had left, some acquaintance came and poured a bunch of filth into your head and left satisfied. And you are going through it, burning it out. Why did you even listen to all that? You can be a resource at that moment, but then you're no longer a resource, but a cesspool. At one level of consciousness, you are also a resource. a very in-demand resource, and a very in-demand resource not only among people, but also among other forms of consciousness, other living organisms inhabiting our universe, which disguise themselves as aliens and the White Brotherhood. They don't even need to disguise themselves. They say, we are this. Your mind is short-circuiting, oh, white must be good.
Yes, yes.
And why do you think it's good?
These are dead people, actually. I mean, yes, the White Brotherhood.
Yes, there are dead among them. And this white, you see, like the Ku Klux Klan also wore white clothing. But however, it didn't make them good. It's the same here. They put on this image and take away the most valuable thing from you. Consciousness. Consciousness, yes, they will fix your body there.
And what do they do with this consciousness?
What do they do? It's their life. It's their vitality. It's their food. The more consciousness they absorb, the more blissful their life becomes. The analogy in our world is money. The more money you accumulate, the more blissful your life becomes. Yes, there are nuances, there are peculiarities. Of course, for some people, money is evil, but we are not considering specifics. We are looking at the overall picture. And, when recalling these processes, I saw how I was losing my freedom, falling into dependency, and how instead of my own consciousness transforming my physical being, rejuvenating it, allowing it to live, allowing it to regenerate, I delegated this regeneration to beings, becoming dependent on them, and they did it for me. It's the same as what's happening in the world of medicine now. That is, instead of developing and maintaining your immunity, you're told to ignore your immunity and just take a pill. It will do everything.
And there's also the question of what it actually does. As I see it now, it mostly kills rather than truly regenerates.
It inevitably delays. Let's be honest, it inevitably delays.
It removes symptoms but doesn't eliminate the causes. Did you have the same thing here? Or were you actually healed?
That's the whole point. Technically, in a sense, they were doing their job. But in reality, I was still falling behind in progress.
So it's like...
Over time, right? Yes. So, in the moment you feel good, but in the long run you're like, well, where's the growth? And there is no growth. On the contrary, this dependency just keeps getting stronger and stronger. So I skip 2-3 days, and then I'm like, damn, I feel kind of crappy. I need to start it again. I need to reconnect with them. It's that state when your immunity shuts down and you're forced to constantly consume something to not get sick, to somehow hold on in this aggressive world. And it wasn't so obvious from the very beginning. I don't know, it's probably like getting hooked on drugs.
Well, probably yes, very similar. Did you have requests only for healing the body or also some material ones? What wishes did they fulfill for you?
Mostly, it was work not only with the body, but also with the field. That is, with the body of second attention. For example, there was a technique for cleansing the matrix of the soul, the crystal of the soul. That's what it was called. I don't remember the terms now. I think it was called the crystal of the soul, which was located in the heart. And the very first time I used this technique, I woke up in the morning, I was looking from my chest. It was amazing to me. When you perceive the world now, you see it from your head. That is, the point of perception is here, but then I wake up and my point of perception is here.
I remember you talked about this.
Yes. And I was looking from the heart. But now I understand that it was just a shift of attention to that area. But there was no love there. There was no connection with the deity. There was no connection with the soul. I continued to look at the external world in the same way. It was just that my attention was shifted. And after some time, it moved back to the head. It was amazing to me. What an effect. Well, there's an effect, but what's the essence of all this?
Well, yes, it's like when you're cleansed of an entity for the first time. If anyone has experienced this, they remove this entity from you, and you're like, oh, wow. And then after some time, you pick up a new one because the root cause of it all remains, and you're like, damn.
Yes, it's the same as with various substances. You put something into yourself, it overwhelms you, it stops affecting you, and you want more. That's not freedom, that's dependency. You're just giving up your freedom for some fleeting pleasure. And for these fleeting pleasures, for these fleeting effects that quickly diminished, I was paying with my freedom and my consciousness. And it was a disaster that I didn't see. And I only saw this after some time when I finally ended up in the hands of people who turned my radars inward and said, look at what you are. Look at what you can do. Look at the strength that is within you. You can bring all of this out from within yourself. You don't need this dependency on the external world, but this only happened over time.
And so probably this happens with all egregors, right? With egregors, with any kind of connections where they also do something to you, heal you, or whatever else a person wants.
With tools,
With tools, yes.
to which you become dependent. The same cards of various traditions, all sorts of... Even the rods you take, there's already some dependency. You already deny that it's within you.
Yes, that you feel it all yourself.
Yes, of course, of course. Well, at least with the rods, you don't pay anything for it.
You don't pay, right?
Well, you bent a piece of metal, yes, it started to spin. There are no losses. But when an alien consciousness comes to you and starts doing something for you, it hooks you more and more and takes something from you that you don't even realize at first. That's where the questions arise.
Yes, and you say that consciousness is a resource for these guys. I think it's also our resource as well. Because after the pillar of fire, when we were walking down the streets, I told you that in this state, where I have the maximum amount of consciousness, at least compared to what I had before, in contrast, I look at people and realize that they are almost non-viable compared to how I feel now. That is exactly about this, that their consciousness is scattered throughout the universe or, I don't know, across some material processes.
Yes, it's like exchanging gold for plastic cups, which was vividly demonstrated in our modern world, when a highly developed human civilization would come to the Aborigines and take everything valuable from them, exchanging it for something completely trivial. The same thing happens. They take away everything most valuable from you, your vitality, they extract it from you, and in return, you receive something fleeting, quickly consumed, and requiring constant external influence again. It's very sad, actually, when you see it from the outside, but through this, my path went through. And from today, I look at all of this and think, well, at least there's something to remember and to tell, something to warn others about. If I hadn't experienced it, I wouldn't be able to warn about it. But I have this opportunity, so it wasn't for nothing that I went through these processes. All of this had significance for today. But I can't advise others to follow the same path because it's just madness. Looking back from today at what I was doing there.
Well, what do you think? Do all these guys, like the Pleiadians or perhaps some Arcturians or any civilizations, right?
The edge ones.
Well, yes. Does all of this really harm? Or is there some rational element that truly helps a person? Or are they all purely feeding off our consciousness, doing it for their own benefit?
Well, listen, let's be honest, we also feed on other bodies for the benefit of our physical body. Even if it's a little cucumber, even if it's a little tomato, believe me, the little tomato also wants to live. No matter how much we're told otherwise, that's just a roundabout way of saying it. No, it's all the same. Just because your level of awareness doesn't allow you to see the life in that little tomato and how it clings to it, doesn't mean it's not doing so. Everything wants to live. And this is the reality we live in. And so, on one hand, you look at it and think, well, there's nothing catastrophic, nothing outrageous about it. I eat and I am eaten. But on the other hand, at that moment when you are being consumed on a conscious level, you lose your vitality. You are dying at that moment, you are perishing. For a while, it doesn't feel that way. But when you reach a certain level of awareness, only someone else can pull you out, more for some inexplicable reasons. You can't get out of there on your own anymore. When there is an opportunity to perceive it, when you, using practices, using techniques, regain this consciousness, we can bring it back. When you finally achieve the perception of it, you have this contrast of perception. You were, you became, and now you see. In such a case, you can say, well, it's just part of my journey. But you've seen people where the probability of such an event is zero, just zero. They will no longer be able to regain their consciousness to realize and say, well, it was just an honor. No, they will simply perish, and that's it, definitively. And to avoid getting into these situations, you really need to filter very carefully what is being offered to you, what you will receive fleetingly in the moment, and what could this potentially lead to. When you look at what this could potentially lead to, in most cases you would say, no, guys, count me out.
And these guys, yes, whether it's the White Brotherhood or the Pleiadians, these ones, or maybe not the Pleiadians, yes, those you interacted with, where are they from? Are these guys from the third gate? Or in what dimension do they actually reside? Where are they from?
You know, I probably won't be wrong if I say that it's not just the second gate, not the third second. The third is where our body is sitting here.
Well, I thought that the Pleiadians and other civilizations were also something at the level of the third.
If we look at our universe, it has different dimensions. And from certain dimensions, the physical world is no longer there. And you could say that this is a dimension, let's say, of the fifth order, the fifth. These are just words to be able to talk about it. But the beings that inhabit there do not have a human structure. The beings that inhabit there, yes, they are fiery, yes, they are powerful, yes, they can look at us from there. Self-contained and independent.
And us?
We are currently streaming. We indeed have access to what is truly referred to as the soul, the original primary source from which our vitality comes.
Well, God.
God, yes. And that's why I often say out loud that each of us is Mahadeva, each of us is God.
And they are not?
And they are not, they have a different configuration.
So you mean to say that only humans and beings similar to humans, well, let's say if they exist, are like God, and all these demons, angels, and so on are not?
They have a different structure. Our structure is oriented perpendicularly. I'm exaggerating a bit. It's oriented perpendicularly and extends beyond the dream of Brahma.
Beyond the dream of Brahma means beyond our universe, where there are many more Brahmas, that is, many universes, and they eventually connect somehow to the original God, or rather, they originate from the original God, let's say.
Well, yes, everything originates from him.
Well, yes, I just meant for the viewers too.
But inside this egg, there are beings, very powerful beings, who do not have this exit, who remain entirely within this universe egg. And their energies are distributed in a slightly different plane, meaning they cannot reach the state that future humans can achieve. And it is precisely our configuration, our structure, that allows access to this, what is called consciousness, a very, very high quality resource.
But they are consciousness too?
They are aware, but they are closed in on themselves.
But they are also particles of the Creator, right?
Particles of the Creator, which are connected to him through such a number of crystallizations and forms that there is no direct access. We have direct access. This is very difficult to explain. Imagine that you are a citizen of your country, and the most you have is the phone number of an acquaintance. A phone number? And there is another citizen of your country who has the phone number of the commander-in-chief, the president. It's not the same. You have two different lives.
Yes, but still, if we take this example, then purely theoretically, if I have at least one phone and the ability to call, I can, through friends of friends of friends with great desire, reach the commander-in-chief. But what about them? Can't they? Or can they? But it's just too difficult for them.
Look, if we take the scriptures and how the practices of various demonic beings are described, these demonic beings would retreat into caves and practice motionlessly for tens of thousands of years, just to reach the perception of the primordial Shiva.
Listen, there were also rumors like that about people.
We don't even live that long.
No, but people used to live longer in the Satya Yuga and so on.
Yes, there are such stories, there are such examples, but you see, we can pick out some particular detail and try to dance around it, or we can look at the whole picture. And there are stories about people. When a person listened to a sage, recited mantras, and became enlightened. Demons don't have such stories. They rejected their nature, they rejected their passions, they tied themselves into a knot. For a demon to renounce passions is akin to a miracle. Its nature is to want, its nature is to take, its nature is to strive for something. Right here, that is to be as much as possible in the process of capturing reality. And it's very difficult to renounce this. Therefore, for beings of a demonic nature, or suras, asuras, inorganic beings, reality is truly real for them. But what they have to do is incomparably more difficult and harder than what a human can do. For a human, it's enough. Right now, we are in the Kali Yuga. No matter what anyone says, we are in the Kali Yuga. And I won't be moved from this position. It will only become more established.
No, well, it's obvious. I think we are in the Kali Yuga, damn.
It's enough to just read the description of this era, and that's it. There are no doubts left. And here, for a person, it's enough to simply strive towards the original. And the world will immediately give them the opportunity to reach it. For demons, this doesn't happen. They must renounce their nature, they must fully immerse themselves in meditation and under no circumstances come out of it. It's incredibly difficult. It's much easier to latch onto a human and parasitize them from head to toe.
All right, look, then here's a question. As I recently realized from my own experience, we represent this flow, right? And along this flow, we have 1 billion centers upwards, 1 billion centers downwards. And along this flow, personally, I, like every person, have both demonic incarnations and some angelic ones. And as you mentioned, somewhere we are in the form of some rays, so 1 billion forms. And as I understand it, these are the same demons and angels. No, it's all human. It's not you, it's all human. And where is the difference between me, a little demon, I recently interacted with, or me as some angelic structure at the peak of my flow, and those demons and angels we just talked about?
Well, look, we live, by analogy, to make it clear, we live in our modern world. Yes, it so happened that here the human is at the top of the hierarchy of everything, and we look at everyone else as animals. Although there are studies where people have doubted that a dolphin, for example, is just an animal. Yes, and there are studies that suggest that a dolphin is quite a self-aware being.
So, or like I told you, there's this Reels video that went viral where they taught a dog to press buttons, and when it learned to say everything it wanted, it started asking philosophical questions. Like, why am I a dog? And why are you a human? How come? I mean, even children sometimes, and not just children, some people never ask themselves such questions in their entire lives. And this dog? Suddenly the dog asked, why am I a dog?
Did you just say who it is and then look into the world? In the end, they had to give him medication for depression because he became too aware of his own consciousness. So, well, that's how it is. There are just worlds where a person is not at the top of the hierarchy, that's all. There are more powerful beings, stronger ones. That's where these stories come from, like a demon taking a human's wife, for example. But you are manifested there anyway, you live there. You see, there is a world, and yes, these worlds are higher, where you are still manifested as a human. Let's say you have your own body there, yes, but not like here. But in this same world, other beings are manifested, which are as obvious to you as cats, dogs, and monkeys are to us here.
All of this, let's note there somewhere, let's say at the lower end of my flow. Yes, somewhere where I am there, represented in some demonic forms. There, just like here, there are these demons, which are already demons, not humans, but something else, like a different being.
Yes, other beings that live side by side with you, and you with them. You might even resemble them, but you are not them, you are something else. And if we take both up and down the stream, we sometimes have such dimensions where it's difficult to even call yourself a body. But you find yourself among even more serious structures looking at them like this. Wow, what is that?
Well, in the same way, for example, I can be a stone or an animal when going down the stream. You mentioned a stingray, I can be one that you saw there?
Yes, but that stingray in that world will be a human. That is, it has every right to call itself. I will be. I am a human. But it swims among other beings that are not human.
Well, it's like an Avatar, Avatar 2, where they also, in the first part, were running around their planet like monkeys. And they were considered humans on that planet. And they also had those panthers, self-aware, and they had dragons. But there they were, like representatives of the human species. In the second part, they were aquatic beings. So they were also humanoid, but they coexisted with whales. So the whales were also fully self-aware, but the humans were still these avatars. And so there are also worlds where the type of human, yes, the avatar is a whale, for example, or a ray. And such humanoid humans, for instance, do not exist there.
And around it, similar rays can swim, but they are no longer part of this flow, and their energy is unfolded.
Interesting. So there's no way to distinguish, yes, only perhaps through some extrasensory perception.
Well, we can distinguish each other very well without extrasensory perception based on need.
Yes, but listen, it's not like we have other humanoids walking around here who aren't human. We still have a limited variety here.
Well, that's the case here. But there are worlds where we are not at the top of the hierarchy, where we are taken into slavery and into marriage without consent, and generally they exploit us to the fullest, and there's nothing we can do about it. But still, we are humans there.
And all of this happens at the third gates.
No, it's through flow.
Through the flow.
As we practice, you find that's the essence of what I'm showing. You find the original within yourself, and this is the ray of intention that permeates the entire universe. And by permeating the entire universe, at some level of awareness and immersion in these states, you see how you are manifested there at the seventh gates, and how you are manifested at the sixth, and how you are there in the first and second manifested. In the first, you are just curled up like a nest, not perceiving because the external world is completely rejected by you. You do not perceive it, but you are still a person there. You can still somehow enter this flow again, flare up there. Only humans, conditionally at the first gates. Of course not. Many different particles get there, just everyone who has reached the state of total rejection of themselves, total rejection of everything they are in, gets there. So again, these demons and guys from the White Brotherhood, for example, can get there, of course. So it's like a warehouse, a storage, a dump. A warehouse, a storage of those who have lost love the most. That's one way to put it. This feeling is the only one at all. It's just that for some beings, no life is enough to reach the source. Some just sat down, meditated. Yes, that's it.
Sat down, meditated at the first gates, you mean, or what?
If you are a human, a form.
If a person like me, a shriveled piece of consciousness, at the first gates, can I somehow sit and meditate?
Well, probably there you won't be able to meditate at all. But the flow that is directed there, it can bring you back to yourself.
So, like now, as we do in practices, I bring myself into my particles.
You can bring yourself back to yourself. That's the whole point. No matter how we are crucified, no matter how we are torn apart, that's the trick of the body of consciousness. If your physical body is crucified, well, a Tatar woman bit off your leg like a dog, you're left without a leg. But when you expend your consciousness, that consciousness remains yours. It's still part of your body. It's just that you no longer control it. You can't use it anymore.
It's just like it's somewhere else.
Somewhere else being used improperly.
And I can always bring it back, it turns out.
Well, technically. But not everyone can do that.
Well, that's what we do in practice.
What I show is, yes, a way to bring it back. But you understand perfectly, having gone through these hierarchies of transformation, how it's not a 1, 2, 3 process.
Well, yes.
Yes, you can bring it back, because even if a piece of your consciousness has been bitten off, the consciousness still remains with you. It is still connected to you. Even if by a small thin thread, it is connected.
So, you can theoretically, or maybe you've already done it from the White Brotherhood, or from the Pleiadians. Did you take back all of yours?
Yes, I take back this consciousness, but I take it back by giving. That is, forcing them to return it, but harmoniously. It's not as straightforward as one would like. That is, if they did me a service and I paid for it with my consciousness, I can't just come and take it back. Or rather, I can, but that would be violence against the world. It's an impure, it's an unattractive process. But I can offer them something else. They can refuse, then I simply offer myself as an endless process of giving.
Are you talking about how you burn and flow, right? Exactly. Your centers, your fiery table.
Exactly. And there are forces that watch over the balance. I stand before these forces and say, for the last, let's say, year, I have been burning and flowing. Unconditionally. Permanently, unconditionally, and in all directions. Please return my consciousness to me.
And sprinkle some extra on top.
The force looks at those who currently have control over my consciousness. They look at how much I've given and think, damn, we need to return it.
Are you really coming to some forces, or are you speaking figuratively now?
It all happens in an instant, immediately. But of course, you can feel it, see it, realize it. You realize it anyway. You still realize when you are rightfully draining yourself, everything comes together when you try to pull yourself out from somewhere and there. You know, it's like there were stories like when, for example, a prince was captured. He wasn't chained. He was told, give your word that you won't escape. We have accepted you. Give your word that you won't leave. He gave his word, and no one controlled him. No one watched over him. But he didn't leave. This is deep sincerity, deep honesty. And those who broke their word and ran away, even their own, wouldn't accept them. They were no longer needed. It was all just rubbish. Well, yes, there were different laws back then. And it's the same with consciousness. That is, when you give it to someone, you have effectively given your word that, well, yes, it's a part of me, yes, it's connected to me, but now it's yours. And just coming to take it back, you become rubbish in the eyes of reality. It will no longer dance and interact with you. But you can create conditions where you burn and flow, where this fire is just you sleeping, you eating, you walking, you reading a book, and you burn and flow, burn and flow, burn and flow. And when at some point the balance is so much in your favor that you just say, okay, I'm taking back my consciousness from everywhere, and everywhere can't stop you from doing it because you've given so much that you can take back what's yours.
Well, it's like you told me, right, about the pillar of fire, that you are now walking around as if you're scattering money on a subtle level. That it's just flowing out of you. I want to say a few words about the White Brotherhood, because I know little about it, and I hope that...
You shouldn't focus there at all.
Not direct attention? Well, damn, such interesting and trendy topics. You said they are the dead. Please explain what that means.
At some point, a particle, a self-aware particle of a person, loses connection with the flow of intention and falls away from it in the form of a physical corpse and the body of the second attention. The body of second attention does not belong to the stream. And when we practiced, you saw that beam of intention and what revolves around it.
Are you talking about Vikri Shakti?
No, you see about the fire.
The fiery pillar?
The fiery pillar. This fiery pillar is part of the illusion. It's part of the snabram.
It's energy, yes. It's energy, yes.
It's something we won't take with us from here, no matter how strange it may seem. It's what spins, twirls, and manifests here, endlessly transforming. The same as our physicality, which in the vast majority of cases simply and inevitably goes to the earth or ultimately to the fire if we do nothing with it, eventually. And so the White Brotherhood, among other things, are those people who have preserved their body of second attention. That is the astral body.
The energy.
The energy, yes. But this energy no longer has the ray of intention that penetrates.
Disconnected from God, so to speak, from the flow.
Yes. And they exist exclusively in the dream of Brahma. That is, there they can be a very powerful character. But it's the same, like when you turn on a computer game, some online computer game, and there you are, I don't know, some dwarf elf of the 100th level, with fully upgraded weapons, all of that. And then your mom comes and says, go to bed, and your elf won't help you, he won't save you. Well, I'm exaggerating, just joking, or your boss calls you and says, hey, listen, you should be at work. And you're like, how am I working? My elf will come out of the computer and explain it to you.
No, nothing will come out of the computer, but in the computer world, it's there. Well, yes, I also want to clarify. This is a recent insight of mine. I also recorded it somewhere, or maybe you even recorded it on my channel, that the only truly living thing that exists is consciousness. This original, meaning this original God who created everything and all the games and so on, is this ray of intention that flows through us. And this is what we call consciousness. Further, consciousness in this dream of Brahma, that is, in our universe, in our reality, first crystallizes into energy, and then crystallizes into consciousness. So all these crystallizations are already the dream of Brahma.
Consciousness crystallizes into energy, then into matter.
Oh, into matter? Yes, I got it mixed up. Well, into physics. But the only living thing that exists is consciousness, and everything else, energy, physics, and so on, are illusions.
The only living thing that is directly connected with the original without hierarchical structures. That is directly. We have this thing within us, and other beings might not have it. This is what sets us apart from others. Therefore, when you look at a monkey, when you see its energy, you understand that you cannot possibly come from it. No evolution will help you, not at all. You are born here immediately as a human.
So you mean they also don't have this flow of tension?
No, it's flat. It is not oriented towards the original, it is spread out in the egg of Brahma. Yes, initially everything is manifested through thousands of hierarchies, there is some play involved. But it doesn't have direct contact with itself.
So it's like, the image that comes to me now is that it's really like the scenery of this game. So it has centers, and the centers are energy, it has physics, and all of this is already material.
And when Brahma wakes up and opens his eyes, all of this will simply dematerialize instantly. But the ray of intention does not dematerialize.
Well, the ray of intention is our consciousness.
Yes. And if a person completely forgets about their true nature and goes either into the physical or into energy, but if they go fully into the physical, then they are doomed there with no chances at all. If they go into energy, at least in this energetic body, this character will continue to exist in Brahma's dream.
Oh, these are exactly all those spirits, right? The deceased ghosts? Yes, yes, yes.
There are just these ghosts that are in a completely incoherent state, somehow maintaining their existence by scaring people. You scared a person, they released a bit of themselves, you absorbed it, and managed to hold on for a little longer. There are those who have made this their purpose of existence, a practice, and they are completely aware. They can even occupy other people's bodies. Yes, it's a ritual, it's complicated, I don't do it, but I know it happens.
Yes, I've heard a lot about that too.
Yes, it happens. And sometimes it even happens by mutual consent. So imagine you're living, you're incapable of anything, you can't do anything. A powerful entity comes to you and says, listen, let's do it this way. We live 50-50 in this body, but in return, I will elevate you to the highest echelons of society.
Everything you want.
Money, women, wealth. Yes, 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 all the benefits. But I will periodically take control and do what I need to do. And I guarantee that someone will agree.
Damn, a lot of people agree. A lot.
And then this entity leaves you, and you immediately kick the bucket because you're completely drained. You've been emptied. The shell is just falling apart, crumbling. Yes, you lived there, I don't know, 30, 40 years, reached the top of the hierarchy, and then you just ceased to exist.
Well, now many people are sharing. Yes, famous people are sharing their stories. Some are trying to get out, and some even succeed. Well, yes, now many such stories are coming to light.
This exists, it has a place. I do not recommend moving in this way, but I know there are people who would gladly sign up for such an interaction.
About bodies, which, as we already mentioned in the flow, yes, demonic, angelic, it doesn't matter, who is still a human. You once mentioned that we, our human body, are attached to the fourth center, meaning our body is anchored to it. Yes, and if these guys are moving down and up the flow, then how are they? Are they anchored to some other centers then? So, I have a minus first center, minus second, minus third, minus 100th. Where does my little demon or my angel appear? Or my ray?
Look, numbers are quite amusing. If we are to discuss this in any way that claims to reflect reality, then it should be a zero center, not the first one. You mean not the fourth? Oh, not the fourth, yes, but the zero. This is the reference point from the physical body. When we move upwards, for example, we find the 108th center there, but for that body, at that level, this 108th center will be the zero.
So like the fourth one, as we have?
Like the fourth, yes. And of course, moving along the flow up and down, there are bodies where, in our body, for example, within the physical, there are 6 centers and one already extends beyond the 7th. And the minus first is already extending. So there are 6 centers within the physical along the central channel. There are bodies where, I don't know, 20 centers, 30 centers are located in the body.
Ah, you mean such large ones. Large bodies.
There are bodies where only 1 or 2 centers are located in the body, and the rest are outside the body. But there is always this point of fixation, the central center from which the count begins. Here, even though it's called the 4th center, in reality it's the 1st, from which our physical reference point begins. But these are nuances that fundamentally don't change anything. I don't care whether it's the 4th or the 0th. It really doesn't matter to me. The main thing for me is to feel the opening, to bring it to a fiery state, then to bring all the centers into this state. But yes, there are centers in the body's flow where, relative to us, they are millionth centers, and relative to them, they are the 1st centers.
In short, everything is anchored on the fourth, supposedly first center. Well, the 0th, right? Well, let's say on the 4th, yes. That for us, the one that is the 4th here. Everyone is anchored on the 4th, just... For some, it's the 4th. For me, it might be Dira.
Anahata, is that the correct name? So everyone is anchored on the Anahata.
But again, you see those guys who judge by the Anahata, they take Bindu for Anahata, and they don't have a 4th center at all. There, the guys who talk about Anahata, for them it's the center of love, acceptance, and so on. But the 4th center is not about love or acceptance. Therefore, it's better not to talk about Anahata, but rather the 4th center. As I say, for someone, my millionth center is their 4th.
Yes, that's right, absolutely correct. But there are beings for whom, in principle, you won't reach 4 centers. They have 3. Within physics, this is more in the lower, less mobile dimensions. They are not bad, there's nothing wrong with them. It's like the bass strings of an instrument. They also sound, they are also wonderful, and can also be part of a group. Here's another point.
I've noticed, or maybe it seemed to me, that the further we go, for example, up the stream, as well as down, it's as if the distance between the centers increases in geometric progression. That is, they are not at the same distance from each other.
Here, the intensity of the center's outflow plays a role. Even within our physical body, if one center starts to outflow too intensely relative to others, it pushes the others apart. Our centers along the central line, along the ray, can move like a bead on a string. Many people don't know this either. And so, a person comes and they are told, okay, find the center in the forehead, and he searches, but there's no center here. Well, yes, something is flowing. Well, yes, something is stirring. Well, yes, something is pulsing here, but it's not a center, it's something more like a flow. And so he spends 10 years looking for this center while it's actually located behind the eyes, lower and inside the head. The same thing. There's the 4th center. Someone looks for it in the lower part of the chest, finds something, and sincerely believes that it's correct. But it's above, the center of the chest and located inside. There you go. And it's very amusing, for example, with the throat center. It can rise. Yes, I've noticed this myself. And it can lower into the jugular phase. It moves.
No, but still, not so much that they would be pushed out of the body.
I can tell you about a practice where they all move to the center. They just start converging.
Oh, well, we did that once.
We did that in this course.
I showed this? Well, roughly speaking, right now in the fiery pillar as I feel it, all my centers are burning at about, well, not 1.5 probably, but 1 meter from my body in all directions. That is both outward and upward. But they don't push each other out.
No, they have connected with each other.
They mix together, yes.
They mixed together, they turned into a single center. They merged with each other. Before this, they couldn't even touch or would pass through each other. And this is the configuration of a single center. This is the configuration of the fiery pillar, also called Jiva Mukti. If we take...
Oh, really? Is this the reborn one, meaning, am I now twice born?
Yes, indeed, this configuration is commonly referred to as that if we use traditional terms in the field of technology. Yes, that's right.
This is another insight for me. No, I'm really shocked that it turned out this way for me. We'll talk about this later as well. I thought it was cool. I didn't even think about it. For me, it was like, well, when they talked about this Jima Mukti, it was something, like really beyond.
You see, you have to live in Tibet, practicing while sitting. on an ice floe.
Yes. A billion lives.
No, we can do that. That's the whole point of a person. If you know how to do it, you go and do it.
All right. I'll write in my status that I'm now Jima Mukti.
Look, you can fall out of this state.
Yes, I know. But you said it's not that simple. But let's get back to the Pillar of Fire. I want to discuss this point. What is the point of this game anyway? We talked about it before. Everything that's happening, right? All these billion Brahmas, our energy here. You're trying to get out of the original, for example. I discovered a completely different intention within myself, which ignited my Pillar of Fire. Yes, something not even close to what you have. Someone else might have something entirely different. What's the point of what's happening here? Is there a single goal for this whole game?
The point is that it's a joke.
That it's a joke?
Initially, he is bored. When the original emerged from the chaos of the Odyssey, when he became self-aware, he came to the clear conclusion, I am here alone, and what am I supposed to do with this? How can I comprehend myself if I am completely self-identical? Even our finger has a nail, skin, bones, and everything else that is different. And here's something that has no form and cannot even see itself. And he got out of this situation. He took himself and split into two components. And then he took and reconnected. And then it was like it ignited, like everything unfolded, like everything scattered into a multitude of various forms. And these various forms began to study themselves, started to feel themselves, began to play, dance, and understand themselves. And sometimes the original doesn't even want to remember that he is the original. He wants to continue playing and immersing himself in illusions. And he divided himself into energy, which is directly connected to his true state. This is the energy of Shiva. It is manifested in every person.
The energy of intention, and it is also consciousness.
Yes, it is also consciousness. It is also intention. It is also Shiva.
It is also spirit, I think, for those who use terms like spirit, soul.
Here I would be more cautious, though. I would still be more cautious, but soul, yes, soul also fits. Not the higher self soul.
And for some reason, I feel that it's spirit. That soul is one thing, but spirit is like some layer of the original, meaning it's not spirit closer to the original, but somewhere in this story where we are and a bit higher, it's like my spirit. That's exactly intention.
Let it be so, I won't argue. You see, as long as we have a word, and at least when I say words, I convey the settings of these words so that the person clearly understands what is being discussed on the level of energy, on the level of the second attention body, on the level of consciousness. Naturally, as many different people as there are, there can be interpretations of this word. Therefore, in my terminology, the best intention, Shiva in each of us, Mahadeva in each of us, the soul, it's all about the same thing. And we have this, we can reach it, we can become aware through it. This is one part into which he has divided himself, and the second part is the one that draws him into illusions, creating the illusion that there is multiplicity here, there is separation. Here you can comprehend something, touch, realize, see how you detach from it. And these are all forms of Shakti. There is an incredible number of them. These are all Shaktic energies, but it is the same original one, just moving in a different way.
Well, that is, all Brahmas are Shakti. Yes, all Brahmas. Vishnu is Shakti. In relation to the original, everything is Shakti.
And this is not about sexual characteristics at all. I often see people saying, oh, I was born, roughly speaking, with a butt and boobs.
I am Shakti.
I'm a mine. No, you are a human. You are a human in whom both are manifested. Look, there it lies, and that is Shakti.
So, it turns out that the essence of this game is that he wants to play.
Yes, of course he wants to play, he wants to develop.
To gain experience, right?
Well, he also wants to awaken, he wants to exit the game.
And in this there is, how to say, well...
Endless dance.
This duality, yes, this dance, that... Duality. Duality, yes, that I want to break free from here, and I want to reconnect with Ajikala.
Yes, I want to break free, but in such a way that I'm constantly drawn in and distracted.
Yes.
That's also there. When you observe from those highest levels of consciousness, that practices allow you to reach when you observe, my God, what a joke it all is. Beauty. And here I am too. I seem to be breaking free. I want to build a temple for myself. Oh yes, I see how you sometimes break free. There is no original story there. Listen, let's go live through art. I mean, this game, this dance, it's beautiful. But there are tendencies. I have a tendency to exit from here. Despite the fact that I continue to live, and there are people who have a tendency towards dying, towards death.
Well, again, look, you often say that, right? And I see that people get the impression that the true intention, the correct one, so to speak, is to break free, and everyone who wants to play are fools, you will die. I mean, I stopped seeing it that way, especially when my pillar ignited with an absolutely material intention. I started to look at all this differently. that each of us, as you say, is a part of the original. Each of us is Mahadev, and you once told me to imagine whatever I want.
That's why I add to this by saying, don't interfere with others, living their lives. This all needs to be perceived as a whole, not by pulling out one phrase and trying to dance around it. That's why I say, don't interfere with those Mahadevs who are still completely absorbed in their illusions. Yes, sooner or later they will tire of them and say, I want to play at getting out of them.
Into something else, yes.
And then a completely different dance begins.
But perhaps by then there will be billions of new Mahadevs who will be playing. So it's like a cycle, not everyone can exit the original. It's like some exit, others enter, some exit, others enter.
Yes, and at some point, observing all this and realizing it personally, I said, okay, let me out of this madhouse. But once I was a patient myself and didn't even intend to leave.
A patient. You see, I often notice that many people, when they watch you, they perceive it as if, like you say, don't interfere with others living, as if it's like, oh, don't touch these idiots. As if there's still this division into, I just get these questions on my Telegram channel as if there's this correct intention, spiritual. And this, for example, is freedom, your intention, right? And everything that is not freedom and not stepping out of the original is complete nonsense. And idiots are those who incorporate it into themselves. But I understand that it's not like that, right?
Listen, well, everyone perceives what's said through the lens of their own filters and perception capabilities. Well, what can we do about it?
I just want to clarify so that people understand themselves better and don't get misled.
For them to understand me better, let them come and practice. Well, let's remember you. Before you realized the fiery pillar, let's say the day before yesterday or the day before that. You and you who have experienced it. This is the same person with the same understanding. So how could I convey it to you? Yes, you were on the side of those people who said, no, Anton is saying something wrong.
No, I've had different experiences, this duality. Some things resonate with me from you, and some I understand are not my path, that's all.
It's not about the path, it's about the essence of what's happening. Yes, I understand, everyone has their own path and quirks, but the essence is still the same for everyone. And only after experiencing the results of the practices does a person truly understand what is being discussed and what I'm talking about.
Well, it's like with Amber too, right?
It's the same with Amber. No matter how much I told you, how much I tried to convey it to you in words, how much I explained, nothing helped.
Yes, but still.
We sat down and practiced. We gained vision, received a video, acquired knowledge. Semyon Semyonovich, you're saying it all wrong. Say it better than I do.
Yes, but still. I understand that this is an important stage for me, and I'm sure for other people too, when a person is just listening. For example, they are not ready to practice yet. He listens and he gets inspired. He absorbs this knowledge, and it starts to grow. Not enough yet, but it will eventually sprout. So it grows, and for everyone.
It's the same as when I communicated with the White Brotherhood. I practiced with the Pleiadians. I grew through this, like a Mahade who is just beginning to awaken. I went through this. But if I had stayed at this stage, I wouldn't have awakened. The same, yes, I explain, I try to find the right words. I even try to illustrate with pictures. Sometimes I look at a picture and say, no, this picture doesn't correspond to reality. Sometimes I look at the picture and say, yes, it looks similar. The same quasars that artists draw based on what we have in space. Does it look similar? It looks similar, but it's not the same. So this does take place. But if you stop at these pictures, if you stop at these words and don't move further, it won't help you at all.
You limit your perception.
Therefore, it is definitely part of the journey. Definitely part of the journey. But the journey cannot end there, because it's too little to have it in your hands. But once you experience it, you can simply sit quietly with another person who has gone through it.
Well, yes, I agree. To feel it.
Of course, just enter these states, amplify them, and even show off a bit. Whose column is wider?
So whose column is wider? So is it mine or yours?
Not longer, because they all lead to a return. But we can compete in width.
Here we are, all different. This is the game. And each of us, although a piece of the original, so to speak, is diverse. I'm talking more about the structure of our consciousness, but not about how we look, and so on. So when practices with consciousness began, I often started to notice that I am like this, for example. And I have rejection in certain moments. And you, for example, are completely different, and you have rejection in other moments. And so it is with millions of people. So this is no longer character, it's no longer psyche, it's not something we can influence with our mind. These are our boundaries. Yes, that's why our structures of consciousness are made so differently. And they necessarily have this rejection. A piece of rejection, a piece of love, a piece of something else.
Because we need a multitude of manifestations for the game. Many characters, many roles that one initially wants to play and experience. Brahma creates figurines of characters. I am exaggerating a lot. With characteristics prescribed. Even his own son, Prajapati Daksha. This is also a configuration with limitations. He is strong, he is very strong. He has siddhis, he has sexual abilities, but he has the inability to interact with other facets because they are close to him. And Brahma says, originally Shiva, pure consciousness, formless, look who you can play with. It's the same as a little child arranging toy soldiers and starting to animate these soldiers for themselves. This one is bad, this one is good, this one does this, that one does that. And he plays with these toy soldiers equally. For example, this toy soldier in the child's hand goes and wins, while this toy soldier in the same child's hand loses. But it all comes from one being. Similarly, Brahma offers all sorts of images, all sorts of avatars. And the original consciousness enters into this and the game begins. That's why there are different configurations. That's why we have multiplicity. But while being in this toy soldier, the original one can say, what if this toy soldier now turns into me? Fully realizes itself and frees itself from its role. And such a game also exists. And one way or another, we play this game when, being in a limited, very constricted form, we start a game where all these limitations are removed, all facets are revealed, all forms manifest. And you become similar to yourself in the original state. This game also exists, and do you know what it's called? Spiritual development and growth.
Well, I mean, yes, it turns out, like we talked about, yes, some mental disorders, yes, all our karma that drags on, some programs on the spirit, on the soul, on the physical level. It's just a bunch of billions of diverse forms, again, created just for us to have fun here.
Yes, so that it is as diverse, fun, and lively as possible here.
Well, at least in this world, right? I mean, there are others, like we talked about, with more love, more acceptance. Yes, where everything is stable and good, and somewhere there's a complete mess. Yes, where it's just a disaster.
Yes, even in our Brahma's egg, there is a space where everything is quite, well, heavenly. There, you just die of boredom in this paradise.
Well, listen, as they say, yes, supposedly these star souls come here from those higher vibrational spaces to carry out a mission, to help people.
Yes, yes. And we don't even have to go far, like all sorts of utopias. There are even creative people who, in their books, in their writings, create ideal worlds. And they see that it's impossible to live there, all these worlds collapse. Because this idea of perfection, you just die with your back.
No, well, how? These worlds exist, they don't collapse. It's just that there are different rules there.
It's just that those fragments of consciousness escape from there.
But some escape, some don't, again. Some gain experience there, some... Well, here too. You want to escape while someone else wants to enjoy, to play here. And it's the same there.
Let's be honest. Even if we are here, far from a paradise world, we can perform a practice, not too difficult, and shift our attention to the 8th center. This is the space of Nirvana, pure bliss, and just get absorbed in it.
Like many practitioners have done, right?
Exactly.
So they stayed there with their consciousness?
Yes, and they enjoy it, and they don't want to leave. Okay. But I know that this don't want is only for a while. Or something happens. They wake up and they're...
Listen, is Buddha there?
Or am I confusing something? Buddha is... Now I'm going to get in trouble, but Buddha is an avatar, another avatar of Shiva, just like...
Shiva.
Originally Shiva. Just like Krishna, just like Krishna, indeed, in a way.
Well, I heard Krishna is like an avatar of Vishnu, right?
Well, isn't Vishnu also Shiva for us?
Darn, but you see, we still separate at some stages. It still seems like Vishnu.
It's just that some have more hierarchy towards the original, some have less. But let's be honest, Krishna is not someone who practiced all his life and eventually achieved. He is someone who could do everything from the start. He just walked around and had fun.
And he had the memory of who he was and what he was. That's an interesting point, too. Often, I see this. And honestly, my friends and I have thought about it, too. What if someone... We've watched a lot of Hodeva, right? If you've watched this series, there are just billions of episodes. We haven't even finished watching it yet. We wondered, what if one of us, for example, is the incarnation of some god, just doesn't remember? Or someone from famous people. What if they are the incarnation of someone?
Yes, a god might be in some kind of senility for a while, but he doesn't stop being a god. Therefore, those who came here specifically as avatars of Shiva, without these additional hierarchies through Vishnu, through Brahma, through his dreaming, through his creation of characters, all of that. Those who dove in here directly know they are different.
But they definitely know who they are, right? They are not humans.
They are simply not humans. Although they might look very, very similar, but
So again, it's not this stream.
It's something else, something entirely different. Yes, they can fool around. Yes, they can pretend to be human and even behave like a human, but it doesn't matter.
Pretend to be asleep, right?
Yes, yes. It's a completely different being of another level.
Well, it will be noticeable by the energy, right?
Any perceptive person will indeed immediately fall to their knees and say, Lord, I acknowledge your presence here.
Listen, I've seen those videos.
Any perceptive person. If a person is in senility, they decided.
Well, in senility, you saw that he reincarnated. Oh my, what's his name? Sai Sai Baba or whoever reincarnated. Damn, I forgot. Well, there I saw a video where everyone is sitting at his feet, kissing some guy, and that guy's energy, oh Lord, hopefully he survives a couple more years. Well, kind of, but a bunch of people are standing around,
Don't disturb the Mahadevas from immersing in illusion. These are not the Mahadevas who want to wake up. These are just other Mahadevas who want to fall asleep even deeper.
Well, what I mean is that you see how difficult it is, yes, for ordinary people to recognize this difference.
That's why I'm saying, how many of these Napoleons are in all the hospitals,
I'm Vishnu, I'm Jesus, I'm someone else.
Yes, that's all clear. We love to take on all sorts of roles. Sometimes we get so caught up in it that we forget to actually live. The small amount of time allotted to us in the Kali Yuga.
So, shall we go to the Pillar of Fire? Yes, because I can't leave this topic unattended, because once again I shared it on my Telegram channel. For me, it was just a shock, considering that I've had very stressful last few weeks, I would even say. Transformation? Total transformations, yes. And considering that I hadn't practiced at all for about 2 months, and when we started the preparatory practices, I felt the processes very, somewhat mediocre. That is, it used to be better, let's say. I can't completely devalue everything that happened, but I was absolutely dissatisfied. And for 2 days I didn't practice at all due to certain personal circumstances. And the first day of the manifestation of the fiery pillar, and there it was. Absolutely calm, so quiet. But I was in shock. Really in shock. How do you explain this? Why did this even happen?
Because where I received this knowledge, where I trained, this is how it should happen. It's a method, it's a technique, something that yields results. This is how I received this configuration. This is how I pass this configuration on to other people, and how someday other people will do the same. This is what distinguishes a person who has been trained from someone who just saw something in this world and starts talking about it. In other words, these technologies have been refined and polished over millennia. Even if you were unstable in your processes, even if you doubted your processes, I am here as the leader of this technique who simply manifests this state, and you ignite in accordance with it, resonate.
But not everyone ignited.
There are people, and I warned about this in advance, there are people who are not yet able to transform themselves so quickly. But these settings are already inscribed in them. These settings are already present in them. And as soon as they create favorable conditions for practice, these settings will prevail and manifest. There is such a term, Ashan teacher, but it's not a teacher if translated literally. Traditionally, this is a person who creates conditions for practice. I create the most favorable conditions for the manifestation of this state. You had enough of everything you have, this state, awakened, emerged, and manifested in you. From now on, it is yours. Cherish it, preserve it, and take care of it. I have explained how this is done. Yes, some may lack their own resources, reserves, or capabilities. But despite this, these settings are still embedded in this person.
And when it's enough,
They will be able to do all of this even without my presence. It's the same as if a person, having reached this state, for some reason fell out of it, lost it, and now they are just an ordinary average person again. In that case, I am not really needed anymore. He simply sits down, performs the technique. That is his knowledge, and restores this state to himself, achieving the same result. I will repeat once more, this happens, as you said, so easily and effortlessly because these are traditional knowledge. These knowledge have been refined over millennia, adapted to the modern person, and in their vibrations and essence, they have been connected with the current modern language and value systems. These are the knowledge I searched for throughout my youth.
let's clarify, yes, these are the knowledge passed down by the Rishis, and these are beings, if I may say so. Yes, people who have realized the light body. What else can be said about them? So, it's not just some teacher who read from a book. This knowledge is directly passed down through incarnated, realized, teachers, yes, who exist in the light body. Am I understanding correctly?
You know, some sages or rishis did not originate from our initial, so to speak, as it were.
Yes, I remember you mentioned that.
Some rishis have already witnessed the emergence and departure of several originals. And who they were there, we don't even have the opportunity to talk about it.
So not even people, but some other beings.
Of course, they are simply certain conscious beings who manage to realize complete, total, and uncompromising freedom.
So an exact, complete likeness of the original.
Yes, in fact, a small copy of it. Meanwhile, the original itself went into the space of chaos, and they stayed behind to await its next appearance. But long ago, they were this original. They simply managed to do something that allowed them to exist separately from it. Yes, these Rishi beings. Yes, about, well, as far as we know, 12 beings organized paramparas, that is, lines of knowledge transmission. This is about the same thing with different facets of approaching it all. Yes, there are mantras. Mantras exist in different paramparas and they differ slightly. And if a person starts fighting over whose mantra is more correct, they don't understand what's happening at all. If a person takes a mantra that was passed to them by Ushich or Shan, the bearers of this knowledge, then they have also passed on the vibrations that lead to this freedom. And it doesn't matter at all whether this mantra resembles other similar ones or how you pronounce it compared to other pronunciations. The main thing is that it works, right? Exactly right. It's the same as with money. But we both understand perfectly well there are rubles, there are dollars, there are euros, but it's all money. And even when you have, say, $1 in your pocket and your friend has a euro in theirs, you can still make purchases with them. It's the same thing. Yes, there are different mantra sounds, there are different exercise techniques, but if they are passed down through parampara, it's a 100% working mechanism, and I prove it. It doesn't matter which parampara. Yes, I prove it because I am a bearer of the knowledge of my parampara. My parampara originates from a rishi named Agastya.
And as far as I know, you personally communicated with him?
Yes, I made contact with this, and the site we did with this being, although it's difficult to call it a being. I made contact with him. He helped me in the practices of Sri Yantra. He gave me knowledge that I did not receive from my ashan. There was no transmission at the level of Janana, but I needed this knowledge for further steps, and I received it directly from him. He would simply come during my practice. He would just show me the next steps, and I would start moving forward, realizing it within myself. And look, an interesting question I think it might arise for many of our viewers.
You just mentioned, yes, that you interacted with the Pleiadians, Balombrast, and someone else. And here is Risha. So explain, what is the difference? Because someone might say, oh, it's the same stuff. So tell me, what do you think?
The same stuff, just on different scales.
So what do you mean by different scales?
You see, when a small piece of consciousness formed into an inorganic body parasitizes you, well, it's something like that, let's say. Can Risha absorb you as a piece of consciousness? Yes, of course it can. You can become part of Risha, you can completely merge with it, but you don't have to. Risha transmits knowledge about you. Risha shares practices that allow you to become like it.
So also like the original God who creates and plays with all of this here.
You know, we are already the original God.
Well, yes, but
there are traditions where it is a great blessing to merge with the original. All right, not many times. There were instances when I got so close to it that I could take that step and simply dissolve into it, completely returning to my unmanifested state. But there would be no me anymore. There would just be fullness and fullness again. Can this be done? Yes, it can be done. And this will happen to everyone anyway at the moment of Mahapralaya, no matter what we achieve here. If you remain inside, you will become the original, even if you are a tiny black particle. Therefore, globally, there is no point in anything at all. Globally, in such an exaggerated way. But there are beings who manage to avoid even this.
These are the Rishis.
These are the Rishis, and they show how they did it. Can they draw you into themselves? Yes, they can. You can become part of them, but they give you knowledge to avoid this. Other parasites do not give you such knowledge. And this is precisely parasitism, when they simply use you, giving out handouts. Here, they give you the knowledge on how to become like them, but if you falter, if you are not sufficiently aware, if you simply express the desire to stop your practice and agree to the dominance of this Rishi, that is, to become part of his body, then by all means, go ahead and do it.
That is, you could even say, perhaps, that the level is not so much about awareness, but the scale of this grain of sand. I am that some Pleiadian in the dream of Brahma, or someone else, and the Rishi, who is fully a primordial god, just like...
Who is absolutely, yes, similar to him, but the only one who decided not to follow him again in Vadikali. That's the whole difference.
And the knowledge of the fire pillar, among other things. is conveyed by these very Rishis.
Yes, it's a stage of establishing and building your freedom. It's essentially when you are born as a physical body, then you are, in essence, born as a fire body, and then you are born as an amber.
The fire pillar is the stage. Before the realization of the light body.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. It's where you hone to perfection this skill of wholeness, unity, absolute love, absolute connection. When you connect the centers, but you won't be able to connect them if you don't even know what this process is about. When you practice on the centers, practice on the tattvas, when you merge it all into one, when it is permeated by the ray of intention, and it all transforms into pure consciousness, into the core of this intention. That's when you acquire real skills. The birth from the dream of Brahma, it's the same as if your computer character just jumped out of the monitor and went about its own business. That's the level of the task at hand. Of course, it's an integral part. Jumping into the yantra with both feet, I'm familiar with such options, but not everyone can demonstrate it.
Let's also explain what a fiery pillar is, just quickly and in simple terms. What is it? When all your centers, let's have you explain.
Look, we have centers. They absolutely cannot interact with each other.
They are chakras.
They are chakras, yes. It's like two strings that are just stretched in space and they have no way to touch each other. There is a certain force, the force of practice, that brings these two strings into contact with each other. But just because you bring them into contact, nothing will happen. They will return to their positions. But there is a technique, technologies that I have shown, which not only bring them into contact with each other, but do so with such intensity that they merge together. A synthesis occurs. For those who know physics, a synthesis occurs between the two centers. And these two centers touch each other. They merge in a unified ecstasy, in a unified orgasm, you could even say.
And they become one whole.
And they become, yes, a certain integral structure. And so we can synthesize each center with each other in this way. And all the centers are synthesized along the flow. And you transform into a single, most powerful energetic process. Where there are no centers as such anymore.
That is, here it's just a pillar of fire, which extends through billions of centers up and down.
From the very top of the universe's egg to the very bottom of the egg.
The universe's egg, meaning our reality within the frames. This entire reality is permeated by our fiery pillar. What does this state provide?
Omnipotence. It gives the ability to fulfill all your remaining desires, passions, achievements, values that are still important to you. But those who have achieved something will not let me lie. Upon achieving, you very quickly lose that very desire for it. When you already have it in your hands, damn. And when it's in your hands, it no longer seems the same. People who have bought themselves yachts say, I don't have a yacht. I believe them. They say you experience happiness twice, when you buy it and when you sell it. All the other time, well, like, okay. The same thing happens when you achieve something. Once you've achieved it, you still feel that something is missing there. But until you achieve it, you won't feel this. You will still believe that this is exactly what you need. And the state of the fiery pillar allows you to quickly, effectively, easily, and effortlessly grab this, grab that, grab this, this. And then at some point say that there's nothing real here. It's all just kind of...
Well, whatever anyone says, that's already... Let them decide for themselves.
Well, that's how it is. But if you try to convince yourself of this, you're deceiving yourself when you've experienced it. You are already completely different.
What I can note from you, what I feel, is that, first of all, it's a colossal level of energy. So colossal that my body can't handle it. That is the first time, especially when we reached a new level today, the body finds it really hard. The psyche more or less still manages, but the body just...
Well, because it's more crystallized.
Yes.
It's difficult. You practically burns in this process, but it gets used to it. Our body can regenerate. It can transform. I showed how to convey this state to each cell and give it the opportunity to practice independently. Every cell of our body remembers that it is Mahayad. Every particle of our flesh remembers that it also contains this ray.
Yes, they come alive.
Of course, this is all present in the practices. It's all in the processes. It's just that now you are experiencing transitional stages. I have been experiencing this for a long time.
Yes, I see. It's just like my spine is starting to align. I can now sit absolutely calmly in the lotus position. Nothing pinches anywhere, and so on. Yes, it stretches. That's what I also noticed, that again in this state, especially when you're not yet used to it in the first days, it hasn't become stable for you. It's impossible to react. Like I told you, yes, from trauma, from some pain, from something. You're just on endless highs. Yes. You have confidence in everything, no matter what situation. The most painful in your life you look at, you see love in it. And you're like, wow.
And there is an explanation for this on an active level. We break through these rejections, tensions, and pains at the level of certain centers. And when your damaged center is merged in a single orgasm with the entire flow, you can no longer be pierced through it, even if just yesterday you were vulnerable in it, even if yesterday it was completely clamped in some crystallizations, even if yesterday you could be poked in it. Now it's all connected into a single whole. And with any attempt to poke it, you'll just lose the finger you're poking with. It will burn.
Yes, exactly. Yesterday, we had a great conversation about how reality reacts to what you say, like I'm walking along this pillar, right? Here we are. Two pillars walking along this feather. How does reality react?
But people start to feel uneasy in your presence. You might even be perceived as a danger to them, something that causes them anxiety. In other words, just seeing you makes them anxious from these intensities. And even your body occasionally gets anxious from what passes through it. That's true. But people react differently to this anxiety. There are people who perceive this anxiety as some sort of divine reverence, and there are those who recognize the same anxiety as a danger and feel the need to run, and save themselves. It depends on the person.
People write to me, yes, the guys in the channel, saying that I record voice videos for them. Some cry, some feel their spasms, saying they have some kind of blockage in their heart. That is, well, those who are inclined towards me, who have been with me for a long time, they, on the contrary, start to ignite just from the fact that I record some voice messages for them on Telegram.
And now you're showing videos, so you become to some extent a mentor for them. No, well, that's how it is.
Interesting.
Once I learned all these things, now I teach these things, and now the people who have learned are doing the same. This is what Parampara is, the transmission of direct knowledge. Not like read this here, remember this there, and repeat that. All right, bye.
And what you said, that in fact I go around and scatter money, but only on a subtle level, that is.
The level of energy.
Someone's heart opened from my voice message, something shifted for someone else, and this happens permanently, right?
Yes, and this money is unlimited. Unlimited, yes. You can't spend it all. You can fall out of this state, but you can't spend it.
So how exactly does reality react to me going around and scattering all these goodies?
You are fulfilling your debts. You are paying off to yourself. It turns out I'm completely burning my karma.
So someone also asked me if all my negative scenarios, whether in my life or in parallel realities or in the flow, are gradually being burned away as well.
Of course, gradually, yes, not all at once. Yes, not instantaneously, but you can really see how the breath of freedom becomes more and more expansive for you. When you see how all the doors that were closed just yesterday are slowly starting to open.
This is a really interesting moment. Just, well, maybe it might seem trivial to someone, but when I left on the first day after realizing the pillar, I went to a cafe. I arrive at the cafe, it's closed, and Ilya asked me to buy coffee and even grind it. I say, grind the coffee? We close. And I didn't even argue or anything. I just, well, stand there simply waiting to see what will happen. And then she's like, okay. And she went there and all her stuff was already washed. She went to grind the coffee for me. She turned on the machine for me. That processes card payments. She did all of that. Then we arrive somewhere else too. Some cafe is closed. I say, well, we want to sit down. And they are hesitating.
And while they are hesitating, your debts are burning away more and more. And at some point, this door also opens. And you don't have to do anything, you just burn and flow.
Amazing. And there too, well, again, such little things, but now everything is finally closed. I say, but I want more tea. We've washed everything, sorry, no. And again, I just stay silent and look at her and say, I want tea. Okay, here you go. It was really funny.
And it's even funnier when you go into processes that seemed unattainable to you. You start to carefully reach out your hands there, and it starts to flow into your hands, and you begin to touch it. So more and more. But the same as in my life, I was sitting there thinking, I am catastrophically not keeping up. I need to quietly, wait. I need to practice, turn all my states around. I need to give even more, burn even more. And then I enter. All of this starts, wakes up, all of it, with one call, another call, and everything started spinning, whirling, and I'm just barely managing to grab all of it. This is from a completely different level of interaction with reality, from a level almost like the body of the third attention, right on the borders of the second and third attention. From there, the speed is infinitely crazy rather than When you try to scratch something out on the physical level?
My Telegram channel suddenly took off out of nowhere. People started subscribing. About 300 people subscribed in a couple of days, even though my Telegram channel is generally microscopic. Videos started to take off.
You're becoming noticeable. Wow, just like that.
Videos started to take off, even though my YouTube was completely dead.
Especially today when it has been completely blocked. It has been blocked, yes.
And no matter what manipulations you do, it's just those 5,000 views on our amazing videos and that's it. And here it just comes out of nowhere.
And everything flies by like that. So in one lifetime, you manage to live dozens of lives, fulfill all your needs, and realize that this is all just cartoons. And set your sights on somewhere else. I've already set my sights on somewhere else. But I don't forbid anyone from playing in these cartoons, because I fully understand that until you let it all pass through you, until you experience it all, until you indulge in all your whims, it's very difficult to genuinely move forward.
Yes, it's a stage. It's like, well, you shouldn't try to jump from first grade straight to university.
To retire, then, you could say.
Well, or yes.
No need to retire if your potential is still intact.
Well, yes, about what you said, until you exhaust yourself. And that was a shock for me too, because I was used to us, practicing together. Everything opened up for me. I was so blissful, literally. Well, okay. For an hour I went, wrote a post in the Telegram channel or something else, and then everything just shut down again and so on. And I kind of got used to that. I expected something similar here. And then you tell me that to fall out of this state, you have to really make an effort. And I remember that on the first day I just approached and said, okay, what if I do this? And if I just do this? I remember that some basic actions, I go in to record a post or a voice message in my Telegram channel, and I can literally see how for some reason my channels are spasming, something here and there. But here, no.
Is that so? Because now you are working not only on the centers you were familiar with. We usually use no more than 12. And you are working on all the centers simultaneously.
It's just some kind of cheat code. So, like you told me, I say, so if I get angry, for example, or if I get offended by someone, you say most likely it will ignite you.
Even more, yes.
I'm like, what? What do you mean? So, before, just any emotion, some kind of rejection approaches you, and that's it, you're all tensed up. But here, on the contrary, all of this ignites even more.
And immediately all these problems evaporate instantly. No one wants to mess with you.
Yes, no one wants to mess with you. Everyone is immediately like hop. Because this feeling appears again, as I said, I can do everything now. No. Stress, nervousness when this manifests itself, meaning they feel that, damn, it's better not to mess with her because you just can't handle clashing with this. You even said that those seeing, in quotes, won't even be able to read my energy because I no longer have those centers. I no longer have what they usually see. Their vision will just hit a wall of fire and that's it. Again, this fire, someone might perceive it as something demonic, black, or something else, because around this fire, as I saw today, these black whirlwinds of Shakti are spinning for me, which are damn.
It's power.
It's power, yes, it's actually power that can, well, be very frightening, let's say.
It can be, initially, of course, it scares, but over time it becomes desirable for you.
Well, yes, I'm starting to get into it too. A pleasant moment. I say, I still can't believe it's such a cheat code.
Well, you try it. Google it. Find it somewhere. At least find someone who knows about it.
Some kind of practice like that, what it conveys, no one, I'm sure.
One conveys.
The most we have so far, is over there at Anahata, where Bindu is.
And I took the risk to show it to everyone, to make it visible and audible.
Like my Shakti, that is, my yantra, which our viewers also know about. Many have already heard how they react to my fiery pillar.
They react with great desire for everything that strengthens intention. And the fiery pillar greatly strengthens intention.
I noticed.
That is, they start being drawn to you, they begin to dance around you, they start being with you. And your interaction reveals you from all facets that are, in principle, possible for a fragment of consciousness. In other words, you begin to awaken in all aspects, even without taking any particular actions in daily life. That is, suddenly you just discover qualities in yourself that you haven't trained, nurtured, or extracted from an endless number of books and trainings. These qualities simply manifest in you. Like, wow, how did I not know just yesterday that I could do this? And why haven't I been using this since birth? Because they have been dormant since birth. And now they awaken, they become yours, and with these facets, like a key that fits all locks, you open doors for yourself in any direction, and you wake up, as originally.
Initially, or when I felt my own intention, it was barely perceptible, like a very thin thread, and only if I was in a super accelerated state. Well, that was about 3 months ago, and now I feel it approximately the size of my head, this pillar, specifically of my intention. That is not a fiery pillar, but a pillar of intention, which is already wide.
And your steps gladly wind around it, merging with it and entering into it. These are all processes of wholeness, unity, and acquiring that very form. Initially, where there is no longer any difference. Yes, it doesn't happen instantly, but when it does, you just immediately see the benefit, see the advantage of such a state. And the more a person lives days in such states, the harder it is to convince them otherwise. In something...
Yes, right now, Tolya like me was asking that the more I am in the state of a fiery pillar, we've already established that it's not so easy to fall out of it. You need to do something incredible.
Well, to act like a complete idiot.
It really spasms specifically. That is, either go against yourself so much or, well, really serious things. So it's not easy to fall out of it. And the more I stay in it, the stronger I become anchored in it. Right? So...
Yes, absolutely right. And at some point, your stability becomes so absolute that you go, and you just show these states to other people, and they can't withstand you in them. There were situations sometimes when I managed to grasp something, I achieved something, he learned something, but he tries to show it and says, Anton, it's unreal for me. People pull me into their states. I can't bring them to mine. Well, I say I train, I learn, I've almost shown everything. And only those who heard me, trained, learned, and entered these states stabilized in them. Even a crowd can't pull these people into theirs. Some crystallized, a suppressed person simply can't. He comes into a crowd and the crowd aligns with him, the processes too. And distance. Here it no longer plays any role. Just who synchronizes with you, who doesn't reject, doesn't repel, goes with you.
Here they don't choose to kill themselves.
They open up to your state. They also start to enter. This is called a video. It's a hand-to-hand transmission. I just do it. By thoroughly explaining and creating these conditions, it happens to you naturally. It happens to me naturally, but when it happens naturally. But a fleeting and unstable person stepped aside.
It disappeared regarding the light body. That this pillar, yes, it's a stage. To realize the light body, to explain, and it was so cool for me, he explained it to me for the first time. The site is actually about how the light body is realized. I just think that surely many people have watched it on YouTube as well. Oh, the light body. The rainbow body and so on. But the technology, in fact, consists of 3 steps. I only found out about it now when I realized it. In 3 steps? Well, you said that we need to transform our energy, our physicality, everything into consciousness.
Please. Sounds like it was smooth on paper, yes, but they forgot about the ravines. Well, look. We have matter. The bodies of the first attention. It consists of many particles, self-aware beings. Each of our cells is self-aware, but its perception capabilities are extremely low. In each of our cells, the original as above intention is manifested. But sometimes our cells are so mired in their functionality that they cannot perceive it. When you, as the whole body, go into practice, manifest this fiery pillar, you become a guru for your cells, the one who transmits these settings to them. And these cells begin to remember themselves originally. Yes, you are a human and you remember yourself originally. Yes, the cell is a part of you. And it can also remember itself originally, you can teach it this. And so, when all the cells in a single impulse suddenly realize their true nature, they open up. With this transformation, matter begins to decrystallize into energy. Energy decrystallizes into consciousness, and you ultimately, fully restore your unity and wholeness. The vortex of Shakti, which spins, enters you as if stretching across you, and from such a state,
into your beam of intention.
Into your beam of intention, and everything integrates into your beam of intention.
Physics and energy.
Physics and energy. And at this moment, you are born absolutely consciously, without losing your personal form, without losing memory. You are born into a space beyond the snoobrum, beyond its universe egg. This is the realization of the light body. It's amazing how modern technologies allow these knowledge to spread to the entire planet, not limited to just having a temple there, where those who reached it are commendable and those who didn't, well, sorry. Our temple turns out to be this virtual world, which allows us to transmit this knowledge, and it all works. That impresses me.
Yes, I'm surprised too. I was amazed when people started writing to me saying that just by recording some voice messages, it already affects them. Some cry, and there's more.
Even my Ashran, my teacher, is not so familiar with all these technologies and sometimes is surprised at how it all manifests in the modern world earlier.
It's the same, just like time is an illusion, so is space, in fact, and that's why it works this way. We just didn't have the tools to convey it before.
This contact through space, visual video contact, now it exists. Now it's also some kind of correlation of ways to transmit this knowledge. But knowledge is still transmitted from vibration to vibration. If I didn't have these vibrations within me, if I didn't have these states, no matter how much I talked about them, nothing would change at all.
No, 100%. Well, that's why there are a lot of people who go to some masters, to some trainings, and yet the results aren't there. No money, no family, nothing that a person wants, and so on.
There's no such.
All right, let's say today we talked a lot about going downstream, upstream, about our other bodies, my little demons, my little angels, and so on, skates, stones, and everything else we are. What happened to these bodies at the moment when I realized the fiery table? Or any other one?
You take your consciousness from these bodies.
Yes.
And these worlds cease to exist. You see, this illusion that we are here, walking around, achieving and doing things, it's just us watching cartoons. And in some worlds, in some parallel dimensions, in some other realms, by withdrawing and pulling your consciousness into the stream of intention, you stop watching this cartoon.
So I kind of reset that branch of reality simply because I'm no longer there?
Yes, well, you could say that you are drawing this dimension into yourself, although those are very strange words, but they partially reflect the essence.
Okay, look, for example, there are a bunch of them there. Like I say, as with my other bodies, yes. And also the parallel realities of this life of mine where I am sitting, on the other hand, right now, or I'm somewhere else entirely, but it's still the same me. And there are, for example, from my perspective as a person, there are more favorable branches of probability and less favorable branches of probability. By drawing them into myself as I am here like a fragment of consciousness. Here I can, it turns out, realize any of them here, both the most favorable and the most negative.
You gain the freedom of realization. You step out from under the influence of already gathered destinies.
From under the influence of scenarios?
Yes. You take that experience, you take that mastery that exists there, but, for example, is not here.
For example, if I am somewhere, I don't know, super rich, clairvoyant, already with one foot in the body of light.
With one foot in the grave?
No need. That's a different branch of probability. Well, let's take, yes, the best version of myself. There I really, objectively know and can do more than here. By drawing her into myself, I acquire all these skills.
And she also practices, she also draws in, while you are simultaneously present.
Are you really sure that I also practice there?
Yes, of course, it can't be otherwise. Look, when we observe our physical body, we see those cells which easily let energy pass through, and those cells that are tense, spasmed, and refuse to let it pass. And we help them awaken by directing our attention and consciousness to them. We teach them. The same goes for the flow. There are bodies that gladly practice and support this common intention. They synchronize with it. And there are bodies that try to escape from it, turn away. And this beam of intention, it is the same for everyone. That is, you feel the intention within yourself. And that other version of you, even if it is of higher quality, feels the same best intention. And at some point you can merge into one, and there it doesn't matter who entered whom, who merged with whom.
That's interesting. So, hypothetically, will I wake up in another reality? Or how will it be? If I would wake someone up or if I get up?
We periodically wake up like that anyway.
That's 100%. So you mean it will happen just like usual? We jump over? So I won't really notice anything, as usual?
Yes, simply. Well, as you notice, you'll notice that like everything, it became the way you wanted. Today, for example, you can say, well, there are some nuances that I would like. They don't come together, and then a week later you wake up and suddenly realize that everything has already come together. These are subtle moments that are only visible in contrast. Only in contrast. You remember, like I do. Today I was teaching, I was showing a state, looking at some stages of my life. From those stages, this state was impossible. simply unattainable, but having gone through these stages, I somehow miraculously reach these states.
Interesting.
This is the merging of the multiplicity of oneself into one. It's hard to explain. You have to experience it. Having experienced it once, twice, 3 times, you're like, that's what Anton meant, or that's what Ashan meant. And then you try to explain it to someone who hasn't experienced it, and you realize how difficult it is to do. That's why I always say, guys, practitioners and seekers, we keep practicing. Only through practice and experiencing these states does clarity emerge. That clarity will never appear if you keep shaking the air with questions. And in response, you get the air shaken with answers. But once you've practiced, trained, and experienced it at least once, in principle, you won't even want to talk about it anymore. You'll just want to stay in those states longer to experience them more so it becomes clearer, more conscious. This distinguishes jnana from yiyi. And this is what allows you to wake up in other realities where everything is just magnificent. Vidya, not the number of questions asked, answers received.
Absolutely. But there are different techniques that I use, for example, for working through the subconscious. I can say mentally, although energy is also involved, I transformed the scenario using certain technologies that I had. That's exactly how it worked with the fiery pillar for me. The day before, I worked through the scenario that I rewrote. You could say that I only developed from a very difficult place, like I need to sweat for a long time, I need to do something from a tough spot. I called it developing only from a tough spot, and I just need the worst to happen to me. And only then, after 10 years, I practiced to see what will come of it. I worked through it, and the next day I managed to implement the changes. So it's the same story.
You also have your own skill that you used.
Yes, here it's just about energy. You jump to those branches of probability that you want.
You can approach it from the side of the psyche or the physical side.
Whatever suits whom.
I approach it from the side I am trained in. Why should I try to learn something else if this works? Therefore, of course, there are different people with different backgrounds of knowledge. Sometimes people come to me, for example, at the 3rd level and everything works out for them.
Just like that, right?
Yes.
Without the course, without the second one?
Without the first, without the second, yes. There are such people. Well, there are also those who say, yes, I'll do everything now, and nothing works out for them because their opinion of themselves doesn't match reality.
Well, in fact, I also jumped in. I didn't practice anything there. I didn't remove the cocoon. Well, I practiced, only somehow in a live format already when we started interacting. I also can't say that I'm some kind of...
Yes, you weren't just sitting on...
Well, I have a huge background, yes, but and in your tradition, at the very least.
It's just that sometimes this background doesn't include the settings that I have. And up to a certain level, you develop excellently there, and then suddenly, you're told, yes, you can do everything. I'm like, well, within this tradition, I can do everything. But I understand that there's more possible, and you start moving further. And when you move further, all of this doesn't just go to waste. It all helps you become more effective.
And in the next stages, of course, now when I mix all this, it turns into quite an interesting story.
So, yes, there are people who start from the first course, develop, and everything works out for them. There are people here who come from other systems with knowledge trained in real training, and they succeed by the 3rd course. And all of this has its place. We don't flush our mastery down the toilet if it's genuine. If it's not just sitting and imagining how we're going to save our planet with beams of energy, and then suddenly a kidney falls off because you forgot that, among other things, you also have a physical body.
Interesting. Question, I liked it. If you leave your body now, your subtle body will also look like a fiery genie. That is to say, it refers to astral projections. I don't indulge in them. But the next question is also there. Will it be easier now, in such a state of a fiery pillar, to have an out-of-body experience? And what will it look like?
It will look like you are outside your body, and you will be there as easily and effortlessly as in your physical body. It is already born. That is, if before you would end up there for a few seconds, fall out, end up there, not understanding at all whether you woke up or not. Well, that is, you are there in a weakly conscious state. So you get out here like, oh, I'm out. Okay, now I'll do something fun, something, oh, I want to go there, boom, there, and that's it. That is, you feel at home there. There is power, there is might, it is manifested on all levels.
And there too, like they ask kind of too. Is this fiery pillar visible to everyone, or what does it look like?
You see, when you leave the body, you exit the flow. You kind of bud off from it, do something there, and then return to it. But the connection with what you represent is not the same at all when you are in a dismembered state. Cool. So you are exactly from it, like, well, a kind of appendage, yes. Like to drones, to drones, to drones, to drones. A drone with a camera, but on a preview. You fly away.
Which, if anything, can just retract. Cool. And how do you do this? So if, like I said, I've never dabbled in this, I don't have that skill.
Judging by the swiftness.
Just before bed, I want to revive today.
I let all this happen. I need it. And it slowly just appeared. Maybe it will even happen on the very first night.
Cool, I'll try it. It's a bit scary, though, for me. I have few such experiences.
Everything's scary first time.
Yes.
Even from a pillar of fire, it shakes you at first.
Yes, but it really feels like anxiety there. But at the same time, it's like confidence, bliss, psychic, some kind of stars. Well, a pleasant state. By fully realizing the pillar of fire, burning all karma to hell, a person no longer comes to earth for further incarnations.
Well, of course, what would motivate you to come back here?
What if I want to? If I have a dream?
Well, listen, how many times have you wanted to go into a nursery and show how cool you are?
Well, wait, even Rishis incarnate.
How many times have you done that? How many times has a person who graduated from college, gone to first grade, and showed those kids how to solve problems? Well, how many times has that happened? Yes, well, such a probability is extremely low. Yes, there are beings who come here time and again, having all the possibilities not to come here.
Well, as we discussed, there's nothing to do there anyway.
Well, yes, you understand. It's more like an exception to the rule. Let's be honest, the likelihood that you would want to come back here realizing all the primitiveness of this material world, there's nothing I would want.
Then I say we were waiting for something, there's nothing to do there. Anyway, it seems like they all start to incarnate no, and yes.
There are those who incarnate in completely different forms, like gods, for example. Well, yes, like gods, like some more highly developed beings. Well, in short, the space for imagination is anything you want. And the best part is that you consciously choose what will happen next. They also kind of something about shooting with memory retention, yes, and all abilities.
Well, damn,
It's just freedom of choice.
Does exiting from ancestral structures also happen? Or maybe there's some kind of help to one's lineage? Well, about the fiery pillar question. That's really, yes, I know. Great question, too. I have now realized the fiery pillar. What about my family, my lineage? How does it affect them?
Lineage in what sense? In terms of genetics?
Well, human. My great-grandmothers, great-grandfathers, whoever.
Who have long since decayed in the grave.
But it means that some of them are at the first gates, some have reincarnated, some are something else. What?
Look, I'll explain now and I think I'll be able to understand. I bought a car, drove it, and I drove it for 5 years. Then it broke down and I got out of it and sent it for recycling. After some time, I went to practice the fire pillar. Will this help my car? My car, here it is.
Well, in short, it won't help.
Yes, well, that's nonsense. It's all not connected like that at all. We try to limit our worldview exclusively to the flesh, but it's not like that. Between your mother's soul and your soul, there can be an entire cosmos.
Well, yes, indeed.
Although on the physical level, you are genetically connected.
And their own karmas, their own lessons are worked through.
There, it's also indescribable, these connections and interactions. Yes. By manifesting all this, you will influence everyone around you. With whom you also have genetic connections, you will have an impact. But how these impacts manifest depends only on the people who feel these impacts. As I said, someone will be filled. In divine reverence, their heart will ignite, while someone else will say, "Don't even come close to me," and will poke at you with a 3-meter stick.
Well, again, they will only get burned by it themselves because I have such energy.
Exactly right. Therefore, you can't say, "I will help everyone." You can say that you will become a beacon. And who will use this beacon in what way? That's the question. That's how it is.
Egregors here have no power over a person at all, right? And if you need to interact, for example, with the egregor of money, you simply form a request and move towards its realization. And if a person was in a religious egregor, for example, in a Christian or Muslim one, they are also freed from its influence. In short, the interaction is fiery.
Let's disconnect. Firstly, egregor no longer has a chance to influence you in any way. That's the first thing. Secondly, why the hell would you interact with it?
With the egregor of money?
Yes, you just take, and in this world, everything you need. You don't need this egregor of money. You know, IT is like, well, imagine you became the president of a country. That's it, you're the president. All the power is in your hands. And you're wondering, listen, how do I talk to my neighbor to make him stop using the drill at night?
Well, I see. What?
You just snap your fingers and this neighbor dematerializes. Why do you need to know how to talk to him so that he... I mean, you could live in a mansion where there are no neighbors within a 100-kilometer radius. Everything is in your hands. Why do you need this primitive mechanism?
And all the connections, if anyone had any, all burned out. Our egregors only operate up to the 108th center, but for us, both the 108 centers and all the billions above and below will burn out. So there are simply no options there. Religious ones, well, it's basically the same.
Well, yes, so this interaction is absolutely irrelevant, unnecessary, and generally seems like nonsense. Even if you talk to the egregors in this state, you'll burn the egregors.
Seriously?
Well, of course, it will defend itself, protect itself, but
Yes, it will be such a war.
so why bother with it? It's pointless there too, of course.
If I understand correctly, then self-healing, citizen dreaming all develop quite quickly. In this state, it develops.
Yes, if you definitely try to train it in this state, you'll train it much faster than if you were struggling in a fragmented state.
And it seems to me, well, at least from what I've noticed over these, how many 3 days? That, well, I have a strong thing for knowledge, and it just intensified.
Really?
It just became stronger, and in the state of vision, what I talked about today, what I saw in practice, I also don't often see things, but it got better.
I'll tell a story between us that happened. You suggested to me to insert your vision into a certain process, very untrustworthy, very much so.
Yes.
I listened to your proposal. You were so inspired. Yes, look, when I touched it with a 3-meter stick and gently explained to you that it's better to do it during the course, and later, when I'm more prepared, I'll return to this issue. While on the course, I waited until you were fully inspired. I look at the table and say, listen, well, you yourself have all the opportunities to go there and see. To which you said nothing. What did you say? I don't want to go there. I said, oh. But you were pushing me there with kicks.
Well, just so the guys understand, they were offering $500,000 just to find out some information. And they were looking for seers there and so on. And now I'm tuning into this. And they already have certain information, but they wanted more, deeper, and further. And I'm tuning in and like, no, I don't need it.
Money is not something that will compensate for interacting with this thing.
Yes.
So no.
And again, like, yes, there is power. But why should I waste? Again, my consciousness?
It's like going to ask egregors for money. Why?
Well, yes.
You just go, why do you need to dive into this harshest situation?
A dirty story, yes, really dark.
Why let it pass through you if you can simply not do it, and calmly, with a burning heart, easily and effortlessly receive benefits worth those $500,000? In other ways.
And it turns out you have drawn the power of your entire flow, and your scenario now has been rewritten again, considering how everyone in the flow was rewritten, but it seems I was pulling, not drawing in.
And you are drawing in the process. And how long it will last, for example, depends on what you will do. You can accelerate, you can get distracted, you can immerse yourself, you can come out of immersion, you can entertain yourself, enjoy life and matter, you can distance yourself from matter, completely retreat into yourself. This is the free will of a person. How will you manage with such speed? These processes will continue. And let's be honest, we went after the practice. A dining establishment in a restaurant. You consume some dishes. Damn, 2 spoons were sitting there. You saw how they slowed down the flow of consciousness into you. And until your body digested it, consciousness couldn't speed up. Everything is in our hands.
Yes, but again, the next day of practice, I ignite even more than because of you.
Instead of loading yourself with questionable products, you went to practice it, and you ignited. We regulated ourselves. We control it. But again, too.
Yes, for me it was shocking. So that the guys also understand no matter how much I eat, it still won't extinguish enough to put out the fiery pillar.
But at the same time, if you keep at it for weeks on end, well, sooner or later you'll succeed.
Well, that is, as we already said, while living your normal life. More or less the same as you were living, but nothing will happen. But if you really go and specifically destroy yourself, I don't know if I start drinking or using something or getting offended at everyone or hating myself.
And you destroy everyone you're offended by as well.
Yes. By the way, you mentioned that if something happens that overwhelms me, I could end up harming myself with it. But such cases haven't happened yet, you say.
Well, yes, but you have such a high level of awareness that you simply won't do it. Although, theoretically, it's possible.
Yes, it's possible. And if I get really angry at someone, I will just end up killing that person myself.
Being offended. If you're angry, you might actually awaken them instead. Anger awakens.
In rage, yes.
Rage awakens. But being offended, that's the desire to kill them, crush them, crumple them. Yes, you can kill a person. And reality will see it. It will say, okay,
Will I be held accountable for that?
well, of course. That means you will open yourself to the same kind of interaction. And believe me, no matter how fiery a pillar you are, there will be forces that...
Well, of course, there must be balance in everything, yes. Again, as we talked about, if the balance shifts against me, then my energy just pushes it away.
Well, no one would even want to shift the balance against you.
Let them. Listen, there are all sorts of idiots.
They might not be around for long. If they don't come to an agreement.
Who is a beginner? Please, the course Power of Consciousness 1, where is Anton? It explains the most basic fundamentals. In the finest details, how to achieve this, and so on, everything is there.
Train, practice, use this knowledge. Anyone who sincerely practices this will not escape the results. Everything will work out. I won't say many different beautiful words now. I'll just say one thing. See you in practice.
Yes, 100%. I also confirm from my own experience that everything works out. Everything works. It works for my friends and it works for me.
And even those who are not familiar with it feel your...
Yes. Absolutely right. And on different levels, everything, it works out. So if you feel a response, of course, all the links are in the description, in the comments. Write which of today's topics resonated with you the most, because the topics were very interesting. And see you soon. Write your questions, and we'll see each other.
Do you want to unlock your inner strength and learn to manage energy? The course, Power of Consciousness 1. Practical energy will provide you with tools to improve health, develop intuition, and gain a deeper understanding of the world. Join and start changing your life right now. Link in the description.